All right, so this whole chapter, by the way, is titled integers. It's like we're dealing with integers. So the question first off is, what is an integer? All right, so we're going to talk about that. We want to compare values of different integers. We want to determine the opposite of a number, and then also determine the absolute value of a number. All right, so that's what we're doing in today's lesson. All right, so jumping in, we want to define our term integer because that is what the whole chapter is about. So integers are basically just any number that does not have a fraction. All right, so it could be any whole number and then also its opposites. So for example, you could have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So no fractions allowed for integers. And then it could include the number 0 and then also all of the opposites. So like -1, -2, -3, etc. So again, basically any number that does not have a fraction would be considered an integer. All right, so that's what we're talking about in this chapter specifically. All right, so we want to talk about integers in relation to number lines. And I think we've done this some already, but we're going to do a little bit more with this. So here, okay, we know with a number line, okay, it's going to be a line with numbers on it, which makes sense. That's what a number line is. All right, but keep in mind, 0 is kind of like the center number. And then as you go to the right, it's going to be positive numbers. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then on the left are going to be your negative numbers. So -1, -2, -3, etc. All right, and the further to the left we go, the smaller the number. And the further to the right we go, the larger the number. All right, so it's worth noting as well that negative numbers do require a negative sign. So you see the negative signs here, you know, -1, -2, etc. But the positive numbers do not require a positive sign. All right, so if there's no sign, we're just assuming that is already positive. And then 0, by the way, is neither positive nor negative. It is a neutral number. And many times we would call the number 0 the origin. Okay, the 0 would be the origin. Origin in English means beginning, right? So this would be like the beginning location. And then from here, we go to the right to get positive numbers. We go to the left from the origin to get your negative numbers. All right, so it's called the origin because that's where everything starts. All right, and as we mentioned, numbers further to the left are smaller, and the numbers further to the right are bigger. Okay, so moving on from here, okay, we want to talk about graphing on the number line. So this is, I think, pretty straightforward. But if you have your number line created and you're told to graph point A, and you're told that point A is 4, all you do is you put a point at the point 4. So right here at 4, you put a point, and you can label it A by putting the letter A above it. All right, so if you're graphing letter B at -3, you just go over here to -3 on the number line, put a point, and then put the letter B above it, indicating that is point B. Same thing with point C. If point C is at -7, we go at -7, and we put a point there, and then we put the letter C above that to indicate that that is point C. All right, so if you're creating your own number line, okay, make sure you have the origin in there. Just make sure you have the number 0, and then you can kind of go from there. So if you're told to make your own number line, okay, you're told to graph points 2 and -2. Okay, what you do is you create a line. Can you guys see that, by the way? I don't know if I should have made it maybe a little bit thicker, but you have a line, and then you have the little tick marks here, right? So you just put the number 0 somewhere in there to indicate where 0 is. So you can put it anywhere. We put it over here just because. So if we put it over here, that's from this point, we can now graph points D and E at 2 and -2. Okay, if you can't see that, I'll try to trace it. All right, my beautiful drawing skills. Here, is that better? So if there's 0, all right, then 2 would be over 2. So you can put the number 2 here. You don't need to put every single number when you're creating your number line. I mean, you might as well put 1 there since there's not too many numbers between 0 and 2. Then you just put a point here at 2, and that's going to be point D. All right, I'll erase that. All right, so that's point D right there at point 2. And then negative 2 would be over here at negative 2. So we have negative 0, negative 1, negative 2. Put point E right there. And then, yeah, so you put the point and then put the letter E above it. Okay, it's been a lot of me talking. Let me just check in. Can you give me a quick 1 to 10? How we doing so far? Do you have any questions? It's kind of hard to ask good questions here at this point in the chat box, but we'll give you some to practice with some other questions in a little bit. All right, is this pretty straightforward so far? All right, looks like we're doing well. Awesome. What is a number? Yeah, that's a great question. We'll save that for another time. All right, so here, okay, in this slide, we want to talk about what are opposites. All right, so opposites would be two numbers that are the same distance from 0, but in opposite directions. So for example, if I were to ask what is the following, or what is the opposite of the following of 10, if you know it, you can type it in, but the logic here is the origin is 0. If you go over to point 10, okay, it's 10 away from 0, right? So the opposite would be 10 away in the other direction over here, which would take you to negative 10, right? So the opposite of 10 would be negative 10. So all we're doing basically is just changing the sign. All right, so if you ask what is the opposite of a negative 6, what would you tell me is the opposite of that? So can you type that in the chat box for me? What is the opposite of negative 6? All right, excellent, very good. Thank you very much. You just change the sign from negative to positive. So your answer, the opposite of negative 6, would be positive 6. All right, what about the opposite of 0? This one's kind of a trick question, sort of. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's an actual question, but it's a little different. Yeah, I mean, because 0 is a neutral number, right? It's neither positive nor negative. So the opposite of 0 would basically just be 0. All right, the 0 is the opposite of itself. It's the same distance from 0. All right, very good. We're going to keep moving. You guys are doing well in the chat. Okay, so using that concept of opposites, okay, we want to now talk about what's called absolute value. All right, so this is probably a new concept for you. So absolute value, what this is it is the distance from 0. Distance from 0, that is the key, that's your definition. All right, and when you are writing this, okay, it's indicated by the symbol right here with 2 vertical bars. All right, so you just put 2 vertical bars around it, and that means the absolute value of x. All right, so if you had like absolute value of -4, for example, that's asking what is the absolute value of -4. What is the distance of -4 from 0? Remember, it's distance from 0. That's your definition. All right, so keep in mind, distance is always positive. All right, so absolute value must always be positive. All right, it wouldn't make sense if I asked Turner what his height was, and he said, oh, my height is a negative 5 foot 2 inches. That doesn't make sense, right? You can't have a negative distance or length or height or anything like that. That doesn't make sense. So keep in mind that absolute value requires a positive number always, because it by definition is a distance, and distance must always be positive. All right, so we're gonna look at a few examples here. So if I said to find the absolute value of 4, okay, what this is asking, and if you know the answer, you can type it in the chat, but what it's asking is, what is the distance of 4 from 0? What is this distance? So class, can you tell me that? How far is 4 away from 0? Yeah, very good. It would just be 4, right? It's 4 away from 0. So that's because, again, the distance from 0 to 4 is 4. Now, what if I asked the absolute value of -4? What would that be? -4 is over here. That's the distance from -4 to 0. So how far is -4 from 0? Remember, it's a distance. Distance must always be positive, right? You cannot have a negative distance. So this would be, what, just 4 units away from 0. So yeah, very good. The absolute value of -4 would just be 4 because that is how far it is from 0. So basically, if you just want a shortcut, instead of thinking through the number line every time, okay, whatever's inside of the absolute value, it doesn't matter the sign, if it's positive or negative, you just always make it a positive number. All right, that's kind of the shortcut. So what if I said the absolute value of 12? What would you tell me? Remember, again, it's always going to be positive. Distance is always positive. How far is 12 from 0? Well, the distance would be 12, right? So very good. So most of you with that. The answer is 12 because that's the distance from 0 to 12. So again, notice how all these answers are positive. It doesn't matter the sign inside. Absolute value is always going to be positive. All right. What if I said the absolute value of 0? This one's kind of a weird one. All right, see a few responses. So this is really asking how far is 0 from 0? So like how far is this point from 0? Well, it's 0 away. It's right on it, right? So the absolute value of 0 would just be 0. All right, and because the distance from 0 to 0 is 0. All right, we have at least one more here. What if I said the absolute value of -18? What would you tell me? Thanks for your quick responses. All right, yeah, very good. It would be +18 because that is the distance from 0 to -18. -18 is way over here somewhere. The distance from 0 to -18 is just 18 away. So again, whatever's inside, make it positive no matter what, and that's going to be your answer. All right, you guys are doing very well in the chat. I'll pause for a second and see if you guys have any questions. And then also if you can let me know 1 to 10, how we doing with understanding? Do you have any questions, and how well are you doing so far? Grace wondering how many slides. We have 2 more slides, then we're done. All right, for those responding, looks like we're doing well. You guys are Colton's infinity. All right, looks like you're doing well. Awesome. So if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll keep on moving. And here, okay, we want to, we've done this in the past, but we're kind of, I guess, reviewing a little bit, is we want to talk about how we can compare different integers. All right, so we have what's called inequality symbols. So the prefix in means not. Then we see here the root word equality, which you see the word equal in there. So these are symbols that are not equal. So it'd be things like greater than or less than. All right, so it's things like that. So let's talk about each of those. Greater than is the first one. Your symbol looks like this. So for example, we can write our statement of 5 is greater than 0, which is a true statement, right? 5 is bigger than 0, and we can use this symbol in between. All right, so in English, again, it would be 5 is greater than 0. And then less than symbol would look like this, facing the other direction. So we can say that 0 is less than 5. That is a true statement. So we can write that mathematically right here by using the less than symbol. All right, so different ways you can maybe remember which one is which. Probably the simplest actually is realize that the less than symbol looks like an L, L for less than. So if you remember that, that will probably help you. Another way we can remember, if that's not enough, you can realize that the less than points to the left. So the less than symbol, if you can imagine drawing an arrow with that, notice is pointing to the left. So less than, left, both start with L. So again, the less than symbol would look like this one right here. All right, and then always with these, the mouth of the inequality faces the larger number. So here, 5 is greater than 0. That is a true statement. All right, but if you can imagine drawing a face on this, and you can draw a mouth with teeth or fangs or whatever, all right, the mouth will always face the larger number, right? Think of like Pac-Man or some alligator or whatever, okay? Think of a hungry alligator is always going to want more food, right? So it's going to have its mouth open towards more food or the larger thing. So here, same idea. The mouth is always facing the larger number. Okay, so we've done this in the past, so I think you're probably pretty good with that, but we'll get some practice here on this final slide. And here we want to compare these numbers. So if you can quickly type in responses. We're going to have a few of these on this slide. If you're not sure where that is, it's next to the letter M, you see the comma button and the period button. If you do shift comma, that's less than. Shift period is going to be greater than. All right, so which one would this be? All right, see several already. Thank you very much. So yeah, very good. It would be -8 is less than 0. -8 smaller, so use the less than symbol. All right, what about this one? -8, comparing that with -4. So can you type in the chat box, what would that be? Would it be less than or greater than? All right, I see many of you. So if you're struggling, okay, keep in mind that -8 on the number line would be further to the left, making that a smaller number. So therefore, -8 will be, again, less than -4. All right, so the symbol is going to be less than. This one is your less than symbol, again, because it looks like the letter L. All right, looks like we're doing pretty well. We got a few more. Why don't you try this one? We're comparing 4 with -6. All right, I see a couple. All right, so yeah, 4 is bigger than -6, right? So it's bigger, so you use the greater than symbol, which would be this one. And again, the mouth is facing the larger number, so it's going to be like that. All right, what about -3 and -10? Can you try that one out? Oh, that's a lovely bird, Jack. All right, yeah, thanks for your quick responses again. So if this is 0, 1, 2, 3 is here, -10 is going to be over here somewhere. Okay, it's going to be -3 is more to the right, right? So it's more to the right. It's a bigger number for that reason. So therefore, -3 is greater than -10, which would require this symbol right here. So this is your greater than symbol. All right, so again, the tip is that numbers further to the left on the number line are smaller. Numbers further to the right are bigger. And actually, I'm going to throw in one more problem. This will be the last final one. What if I told you to compare the absolute value of -5 with the number 3? This will be our final question. Can you figure this one out? It's testing your knowledge of absolute value and your knowledge of less than and greater than. All right, so very good. I see a lot of correct responses. Remember, absolute value of -5 would just be +5. It's the distance from 0. So whatever's inside would always become positive no matter what. So what you're really doing is comparing 5 with 3. All right, so 5 is greater than 3, so therefore the absolute value of -5 is greater than 3. So your symbol should be a less than, or sorry, greater than symbol. All right, I think we're doing well. Let me just check in one final time. Can you give me a 1 to 10? How we doing? Do you have any questions from anything from today's lesson? Because that is our final slide. right, awesome. We're doing well, looks like. Thanks for the heads up, Gray. That is fine. You like my beautiful face right there? Oh, that was one of the games I played yesterday with my friends with our game night online. There was a game that involved drawing, and I think you know by now that my drawing skills are severely lacking. So it was kind of a struggle for me, which kind of made it more funny because my drawings were pretty bad. I drew a beautiful pig, though, in case you were wondering. I drew a beautiful sick person. Okay, great. That's not needed to know. Anyway, here's your pin for those that are able to play. So it's on your screen. I'd put it in the chat box as well. So, okay, Grace said he was heading out. Anyone else heading out or not playing today? Should be a pretty quick game, by the way. So if you have the time, I think today is shouldn't take too long. Wait, Colton, remind me, was it your birthday recently? I'm losing track of whose birthdays are when. Because you said you're 11. Is that like a new thing? Did you just turn 11? Yeah, you did, right? Recently? I forget. All right, we got, oh boy, fill in the chicken. Phil, Chicken, Colton, we have Molly and Ian. All right, I think that's everybody. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started. So we have 10 questions. Again, these are going to be really quick, so do your best to answer quickly. So question 1 is, what is the opposite of 10? All right, very good. It would be -10. Excellent. All right, so we got Phil in the lead, and then we have Ian, then Molly, and then Colton. All right, next one, number 2. What is the opposite of -14? All right, very good. Again, it would be +14. Just change the sign. Ooh, and Katie's coming up in second place. All right, next one, number 3. What about this? This is the absolute value of 16. Very good. I'm glad no one put -16, because a lot of people do that. Yeah, it's just going to take whatever's inside, make it positive, and you guys were all correct. Very good. It's going to be +16. All right, Colton's moving up into third place, and the scores are very close. Still anyone's game. Now going into question number 4. What is the absolute value of -24? Ooh, careful. Remember, whatever's inside, make it positive, right? Because that is a distance. So it's going to be +24. All right, so careful on that. All right, now Katie's in first, Colton in second, Ian third, and then Philip in fourth. All right, number 5. Compare -3 and +4. By the way, the answers are randomized, so the symbols might change with the next questions. So make sure you read carefully. Very good, though. This one should be less than, because -3 is less than 4. All right, still the same lineup, and still very close scores. Colton's only 6 points behind Molly. All right, number 6. Compare -5 and -8. All right, very good. You guys are doing well with the negatives, which I'm pretty impressed with. Yeah, it should be greater than. So -5 is bigger than -8. -8 is a smaller, more negative number. All right, still the same lineup, but still, again, very close scores. Okay, number 7, compare -15 and -18. All right, careful. This one would be greater than. -15 is a larger number. -18 is more negative, right? So it's going to be a smaller number. So -15 is bigger, so we use greater than. All right, still the same lineup. Katie in first, Colton second, Ian third, Philip in fourth. All right, number 8, compare these two things. All right, careful because it should be greater than. The reason is absolute value of -9 is +9, right? It takes whatever that is inside and makes it positive. So this is +9, +2. 9 is bigger than 2, so your answer is greater than. All right, so blue should be the answer. All right, now we have Katie in first still, Ian in second, Colton in third, and Philip in fourth. Okay, we have 2 more questions. Here we go. Compare -20 and -10. Very good. It would be less than. -20 is smaller. It's more negative. Oh boy. Oh wow. Ian takes the lead right at the last question, but he's only 17 points ahead. So this is neck and neck. All right, final question. Here we go. Number 10, compare these two things. All right, a little better on that one. So yeah, this is going to be +20, and this is +4. Remember, absolute value makes whatever's inside positive. It's +20, +4, and 20 is greater than 4, so therefore your answer is greater than. All right, let's see what the final score is. Here we go. We have in third place with 9 out of 10, Colton. Good job, Colton. Second place is Katie with a perfect score of 10 out of 10, only 7 points behind Ian. Oh my goodness. So Ian's in first place, just barely. Wow, that was a crazy game. Yeah, Katie, you were first like the whole game, right up till like second to last question. So yeah, wow, very good.